I'm here at St. Stephen's Catholic Church in Portland, Oregon. Today is the third day in our Novena to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And we continue with our look at Dietrich von Hildebrand's book, The Heart, originally called The Sacred Heart. And this, by the way, I received a nice communication from the Dietrich von Hildebrand Legacy Project, and I included a link to that project on YouTube. They have a whole playlist on the heart from a conference that was done, a summer or two ago. So you might check that out, and I look forward to exploring it more myself. So thank you to the Dietrich von Hildebrand Legacy Project, and they wished our parish a very blessed novena. So we wish you a blessed novena as well. Well, let's continue then with chapter 3, and chapter 3 is entitled Tender Affectivity. I'll read a little bit from the book here. After World War I, a strong anti-affective trend developed as a reaction against the ethos of the 19th century. This attitude manifested itself especially in architecture and in music under the name of New Objectivity or Functionalism. It rightly opposed that ever-decorous architecture of the Victorian epoch, but unfortunately believed that the true antithesis to this phony, overladen style lay in a dull technical working out of practical necessities in architecture. In its opposition to the 19th century, functionalism also invaded the field of music. Every affective element in music was stigmatized as romantic or even as sentimental. We recall hearing even a famous professor in German literature proclaim that love was a more or less petty topic in literature as compared with political problems. But this anti-affective trend was not restricted to the domain of art. It was also found in the sphere of religious devotions. Sound as the reaction was against a sentimental and subjectivistic piety, to be found in many trashy devotional pictures or popular pious songs, here also the solution unfortunately was not sought in a genuine affectivity, but rather in a banishment of all affectivity. Every stress on love, on being moved, on longing, was regarded as petty subjectivism, which had to be opposed in the name of a sound sobriety and the spirit of objectivity. This trend is still alive today and manifests itself in manifold ways. For instance, the tendency to accelerate the tempo in music, to replace as much as possible every legato with a staccato, to interpret music full of deep and glorious affectivity, such as the music of Beethoven or Mozart, in an unaffective, merely temperamental way, are all symptoms of the battle going on against affectivity in the proper sense. It is significant that this anti-affective trend is directed against only a certain type of affectivity, what we should call tender affectivity. The champions of functionalism and sober objectivity do not shun affective dynamism, or what we would call temperamental or energized affectivity. It is not the fire of a devouring ambition or the dynamism of wrath and fury which they despise as subjective and romantic. This dark dynamic type of energized affectivity is accepted as something elementary and genuine. The kind of affectivity which the new objectivity or functionalism fights is the affectivity of a specifically human and personal character. A cool rationality and a utilitarian pragmatism are upheld against what we have called tender affectivity, and the expressions of a strong vitality such as vivacity and a strong temperament, or of passions such as ambition and lechery, are not only tolerated but even welcomed as legitimate elements in life and in art. We do not imply any criticism of these passions being made a subject of art. Passions have always played a legitimate and a great role in art. What we are criticizing is the fact that tender affectivity is excluded from art by these champions of the new objectivity. Now, no one would dream of calling feelings such as ambition, lust for power, covetousness, or lechery sentimental. Blameworthy as these feelings are from a moral point of view, they are seen as something grand, powerful, virile, because they are not prone to sentimentality. Such is the attitude of the anti-affectivist. They are seen as something aesthetically impressive and not at all ridiculous or unfortunate. So if one is temperamental, we often see that characterization of musicians or artists as being temperamental, and that is okay. But if we see someone as being tender, well, it's often considered a weakness. All right, let's continue. Now, some people are unable to show their feelings or are embarrassed by them, so that they hide them behind an apparent indifference. It is tender affectivity which they want to hide. They do not try to conceal their wrath or anger, their irritation or bad humor. So we might even think of that characterization of the temperamental artist who is angry or irritated or has bad humor. But they won't be vulnerable. They won't show that tender affectivity. And this is often a great plot line in a story of the one who's temperamental and impossible and troubled, and then finally what is that thing that gets them to break down and weep, and that gives the audience a sense of relief. Finally this person is going to experience some healing. So we are thinking rather of a familiar type of person who is ashamed to admit that something moves him, or to express his love, or to betray his contrition. However, while some people are unable to display their feelings, or are ashamed to, there are others who at times hide their feelings not because of these reasons, but rather because of the nature of true affectivity itself. For it belongs to the nature of true affectivity that certain deep feelings are understood in their intimacy. So in other words, there are those who hide their feelings because they think that it's weak, but there are others who hide their feelings because it's too intimate and it's not to be shared with everyone. That's true affectivity. All right, let's continue with von Hildebrand. One of the most important points in the elaboration of the role of the heart and of the sphere of tender affectivity is to expose the error of considering them as merely subjective, or to build up a contrast between objectivity and affectivity. Now, the true affective experience implies that one is convinced of its objective validity. An affective experience an affective experience which is not justified by reality has no validity for the truly affective man. As soon as such a man realizes that his joy, his happiness, his enthusiasm, or his sorrow is based on an illusion, the experience collapses. Thus, what matters primarily is not the question, do we feel happiness, but rather, is the objective situation such that we have reason to be happy? The truly affective man, the man with an awakened heart, is precisely the one who grasps that what matters is the objective situation and whether there is reason to rejoice and to be happy. It is in taking the objective situation seriously, in being concerned with the question of whether the objective situation calls for happiness, for joy, or for sorrow, that the great superabundant spiritual affective experiences are engendered. Now, the subjectivist, on the contrary, and that's in the negative sense of the term, the subjectivist, on the contrary, looks at his own feelings and is concerned only with how he acts. He is indifferent to the objective situation as such and to its call for a response. Clearly, such a man is incapable of a great, genuine, and deep affectivity. So we think about that person who is unmoved by something that deserves a response. They're unmoved. They're unemotional. They never break down in tears. Now, there are those who break down in tears all the time that we would consider sentimental, and there's something very endearing about that at times. But for those who would never show any weakness, regardless of whether something deserves a response, well, that would be the subjectivist, because it's all about how that person feels, not upon the objective reality of, what deserves a response. So the true affectivity then is responding in a way based upon the validity, the objective validity of something deserving a response. All right, so that's the gist of chapter 3. Now, where are we going with all this? Remember that we're looking at the heart from various perspectives in a natural way. And in a couple of days, what we'll do is we will take a look at the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and then we'll come back and look at how the human heart is elevated from the natural to the supernatural based upon our relationship to Christ and the Sacred Heart. So that is our pathway. That is where we are going with this novena. And so here we are in a philosophical exploration, and we will come to that which is theological and apply it to our own lives. So I hope you will continue to tune in and join me tomorrow for day 4 in our novena to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And now it's time to pray. So you can click on a link in the description below the video for a copy, a PDF printout of the novena prayer, and you can click on another link to watch the video and pray along with me inside the church, or you can pray it on your own. But nevertheless, join me tomorrow for day 4, and don't miss a day of prayer with us.